I was 25 the night. My parents invited me to an expensive restaurant and told me I was no longer their daughter. My mother smiled when she said it. That's the part I remember most. Not the chandelier light above us. Not the untouched birthday dessert. Not even the papers my father slid across the table. The smile. As if she had been waiting years for this moment. "Myra," she said softly, folding her hands together. "There's something we should have told you a long time ago." I already knew what was coming. 6 months earlier, I had discovered the truth on my own. But they didn't know that. So I sat quietly and let her continue. "You're adopted." The word landed exactly where she wanted it to. She watched my face carefully, waiting, expecting tears, expecting shock, expecting gratitude. Instead, I simply looked at her. My father cleared his throat. "We gave you a good life," he said. "A better life than you would have had otherwise." There it was. The opening argument. Not love, not family. A transaction. My mother nodded. "And now that you're an adult, we think it's best everyone moves forward separately." My stomach tightened despite everything. No matter how prepared you are, hearing your parents disown you still hurts. It hurts in places logic can't reach. She slid a document toward me. "We've updated our estate plans. Translation: you're out. No inheritance. No family assets. No future involvement. 25 years reduced to paperwork." I stared at the pages. Then I looked up. My mother smiled again. "We thought honesty was the kindest option." Kind. The word nearly made me laugh. Because kindness wasn't something I'd known growing up. Birthdays were forgotten. Achievements ignored. Affection rationed. I spent my childhood trying to earn love that was never freely given. And now I finally understood why. To them, I had always been temporary, useful, replaceable. Across the table, my father shifted nervously. His eyes kept drifting toward the small folder beside my plate. The folder I had brought. The folder he didn't know about. 6 months earlier, after years of questions, I had filed paperwork through an adoption registry. I wasn't expecting much. Maybe a name, maybe a medical history. Instead, I found an entire family. A mother named Elena, a younger brother named Lucas, a grandmother named Rosa. People who had spent 25 years wondering where I was. People who had never stopped thinking about me. The first letter Elena sent me was only 3 pages long. I still carried it everywhere. One sentence remained burned into my memory. "If you ever want to meet us, there's already a place for you at our table. No demands, no guilt, no expectations. Just a place." I hadn't known how much I needed those words until I read them. Back in the restaurant, my mother mistook my silence for weakness. "We understand this is emotional," she said. It wasn't. Not anymore. The grief had happened months ago. What I felt now was clarity. My father pushed the paper closer. "Just sign acknowledging you've received everything." I glanced down, then back up. "No." Both of them froze. "What?" my mother asked. "I'm not signing." The warmth vanished from her face instantly. It always amazed me how quickly her kindness disappeared when she stopped getting what she wanted. My father frowned. "Why not?" I reached for my folder, slowly, calmly. The room felt very quiet. Then I opened it. Inside were photographs, letters, documents, a life they knew nothing about. My mother's expression tightened. "What is that?" I smiled for the first time all evening. "The reason I'm okay." For the first time, uncertainty appeared in her eyes. She hated uncertainty. She needed control. Needed the script. Needed me to react exactly the way she'd planned. But I wasn't following the script. And then she made her mistake. The one that changed everything. "If we're being honest," she said coldly, "you were never really family anyway." The sentence hung in the air, heavy, ugly, permanent. I looked at her, then I looked beyond her shoulder, to Porcel 14, 3 tables away, and I stood. My parents exchanged confused glances. "Where are you going?" my father asked. I picked up my folder. My heart was beating fast now, not from fear, from anticipation, because the moment had finally arrived. I looked directly at my mother. "My family is sitting 3 tables behind you. Silence. Absolute silence." Then she turned. slowly, and saw them, Elena, Lucas, Rosa, all sitting together, all watching, all knowing exactly what had happened. My mother's face lost its color. My father stopped breathing for a second. At table 14, Elena stood first. Then Lucas, then Rosa, not dramatically, not aggressively, just standing, waiting, ready. The way families do when someone they love is coming home. I saw my mother looking between Elena and me, noticing the similarities. The same eyes, the same smile, the same chin. Understanding, finally understanding. And for the first time in my life, she had no words, no speech, no control, no script. I walked away from the table. Each step felt lighter than the one before it. 25 years of carrying their approval. 25 years of trying to be enough. 25 years of shrinking myself to fit inside a place where I was merely tolerated. Gone. Just gone. When I reached table 14, Rosa opened her arms. I hadn't been hugged by a grandmother since I was 12. The moment she wrapped her arms around me, something inside me cracked open. Not painfully, reliefully, like a door finally unlocking. "Mi niña," she whispered, "my girl." 3 simple words. I nearly cried. Lucas pulled out the empty chair beside him. The chair they had reserved for me. The chair they weren't even sure I'd use. But they saved it anyway. Elena smiled through tears. "We hoped you'd come over." I looked at the empty seat, then back toward my parents. They were still staring, still frozen, still trying to understand how they had lost control of the story. The truth was simple. They never had control. Not really. Because love isn't ownership, family isn't paperwork, and belonging isn't something another person gets to revoke. I sat down. The chair felt strangely familiar, as if it had always been waiting. Behind me, I heard my mother stand. Myra. I didn't turn around. Not because I hated her, not because I wanted revenge, but because some chapters end exactly where they're supposed to, and this one had ended. Elena reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Lucas grinned nervously. Rosa ordered a slice of chocolate cake, a single candle. Just one. The irony made us all laugh. For 25 years, I had spent birthdays wondering if I belonged anywhere. That night, I finally got my answer. Not from the people who raised me, but from the people who had never stopped saving me a seat. And sometimes, that's the difference between being needed and being loved. One keeps you around while you're useful. The other leaves a chair empty for 25 years, hoping you'll eventually find your way home. My mother smiled when she said it. That was the detail I couldn't forget. Not the restaurant, not the expensive wine, not even the papers my father pushed across the table. The smile. The calm, satisfied smile of a woman delivering a sentence she had rehearsed for years. "We only kept you for the benefits, Ava." The words landed softly, almost gently, as if she were discussing the weather. I was 26 years old. And apparently my childhood had been a business arrangement. My father stared at the tablecloth. My mother watched my face, waiting, expecting tears, expecting shock, expecting the breakdown she had carefully planned this evening around. Instead, I sat very still, because what neither of them knew was simple. Someone was watching. Someone who had heard every word. And before this night was over, my mother would learn exactly who. The restaurant overlooked the harbor. Floor-to-ceiling was same, soft music. The kind of place people chose when they wanted a conversation to feel important. Or final. My mother, Denise Carter, loved appearances. Everything in our family revolved around appearances. The perfect Christmas photos, the perfect holiday dinners, the perfect social media posts. Behind closed doors was another story. Growing up, I learned quickly that affection came with conditions. Good grades earned attention, achievements earned praise. Being easy earned acceptance. Existing wasn't enough. I remember my 12th birthday. My younger cousin Ethan got a huge party 2 weeks before mine. Magician, bounce house, custom cake. When my birthday arrived, I got a supermarket cupcake. 1 candle. My aunt apologized awkwardly. "Money's tight this year." Years later, I learned money wasn't tight at all. I was simply cheaper. And being cheaper was useful. That was the lesson my childhood taught me. By 16, I stopped asking for things. By 18, I stopped expecting them. By 26, I understood exactly who my parents were. What I didn't understand was why they suddenly wanted me gone. Until 6 months earlier. That's when everything changed. My grandmother Eleanor died. She was the only person in the family who treated me like I belonged. Every Sunday she called. Every birthday she remembered. Every achievement she celebrated. When I graduated college, she cried harder than I did. At her funeral, I noticed something strange. My parents were nervous. Not grieving, nervous. The difference matters. A few weeks later, while handling probate paperwork for my own job at a law office, I discovered something my parents thought nobody knew. My grandmother had created a trust, a very large trust, and buried deep inside it was a clause with my name. The trust had been providing monthly payments to my parents for raising me. Payments that ended permanently on my 26th birthday. My birthday. The exact day of this dinner. Suddenly everything made sense. The cold behavior, the distance, the strange invitation, the sudden need for a serious conversation, the benefits. Those benefits, the money had been ending, and apparently so was I. Back in the restaurant, my mother continued speaking. We sacrificed so much, I almost laughed. People who genuinely sacrifice never keep receipts. But my mother kept all of them. Every expense, every inconvenience, every favor, stored away like evidence. My father finally spoke. The arrangement made sense when you were younger. Arrangement. Not daughter, arrangement. The language told the truth before they did. Then came the sentence. The one she'd been waiting all evening to say. We don't see a reason to continue pretending we're a family. She smiled, actually smiled, and that's when I noticed movement near the back of the restaurant. Table 11. 3 people, watching quietly, listening carefully. Exactly as planned. 6 months earlier, after discovering the trust, I'd made another discovery. A sealed adoption file. Inside was a name, my birth mother, Laura Bennett. I waited 3 weeks before calling her. 3 weeks of fear. 3 weeks of rehearsing conversations. 3 weeks wondering if she'd care. When she answered, she cried before I even finished introducing myself. That was the beginning. Not a dramatic reunion. Just small conversations, coffee meetings, phone calls, shared stories, slow trust. And eventually I met the rest of them. My grandfather Frank, my younger sister Olivia. People who wanted nothing from me. People who simply wanted me. Tonight they were sitting at table 11. Watching everything, witnessing every word. My mother had no idea. Across the table, she slid several documents toward me. We've updated our estates. Translation, you're out. Officially, legally, completely. I glanced down, then back up. Okay. The response caught her off guard. She blinked. That's all you have to say. What else should I say? Confusion spread across her face. The script wasn't working. The tears weren't arriving. The collapse wasn't happening. She tried again. We only kept you because the support payments made it worthwhile. There it was. The confession. Clear. Direct. Unmistakable. And somewhere behind her, I saw Olivia lower her eyes. Laura's hand covered her mouth. My grandfather's jaw tightened. They had heard it all. Every word. My mother still didn't know. She leaned forward. You should be grateful we kept you at all. That sentence changed everything. Not because it hurt. Because it didn't. Not anymore. The wound had healed months ago. The moment I found people who wanted me without conditions. I stood slowly. My parents exchanged confused glances. My father frowned. Where are you going? I picked up my folder. The same folder I'd carried for 6 months. Inside were trust documents, adoption records, photographs, letters, proof, truth, and a future. I looked directly at my mother. Then I glanced past her shoulder, toward table 11. To my family, her forehead wrinkled. What does that mean? I smiled. My birth family has been sitting 3 tables behind you all evening. Silence. Complete silence. My mother's head turned, slowly, almost mechanically. Then she saw them. Laura, Olivia, Frank. 3 faces. 3 witnesses. 3 people who had heard every cruel sentence. The color drained from her face instantly. My father looked like someone had punched him. At table 11, my birth family stood. Not aggressively, not dramatically, simply standing, waiting, ready. The way people stand when someone important is coming toward them. My mother turned back to me, speechless. For the first time in my life, she had no control, no script, no performance, no explanation, only consequences. I walked away from the table. Each step felt lighter. 26 years of trying to earn a place. 26 years of proving my worth. 26 years of chasing approval. Gone. Just gone. When I reached table 11, Laura's eyes filled with tears. She pulled out the empty chair beside her. The chair they had reserved specifically for me, even though they weren't sure I'd use it. Even though they weren't sure I'd choose them, they saved it anyway. "We were hoping you'd come over," she whispered. I sat down, and for the first time all night, I felt something my parents had never given me. Peace. Behind me, I heard my mother stand. Ava. I didn't turn around. Some conversations end because people change. Others end because the truth finally arrives. This was the second kind. Laura squeezed my hand. Olivia smiled through tears. Frank raised his glass. And at that moment I understood something my parents never would. Love doesn't calculate profit. Family doesn't keep score. And anyone who only keeps you for the benefits was never keeping you for you. They were keeping you for what you provided. The people at this table wanted nothing. And somehow, that meant everything. My mother thought she was ending my story that night. She had no idea who was watching. And she had absolutely no idea that my real story had already begun. My name is Clarice Bennett, and I was 25 years old, the night my parents took me to dinner to erase me from their future. The restaurant overlooked the river, white tablecloths, soft piano music, expensive wine. The kind of place people choose when they want bad news to sound elegant. My mother, Victoria Bennett, had picked it herself. That should have warned me. Victoria never spent money unless she expected a return. The moment I sat down, I noticed there was no birthday card, no gift, no cake waiting somewhere in the kitchen, just my parents, and a leather folder resting beside my father's plate. I knew that folder. I worked as a legal assistant for an estate planning firm. People brought folders like that when they wanted signatures, not celebrations. We ordered drinks, nobody touched them. The silence stretched. Finally, my mother folded her hands together. "Claire," she said softly, "there's something we need to discuss." The voice was familiar. The careful voice. The one she used when pretending cruelty was concern. My father stared at the table. My stomach tightened. Then she smiled. Not warmly, politely, like someone announcing a schedule change. "We've decided it's time to be honest." I felt the room grow smaller. "You were adopted." The words landed heavily. Not because I didn't know. I already did. I'd learned the truth 8 months earlier. But they didn't know that. They expected shock, pain. Tears instead. I simply looked at her. She continued. "We gave you a good life." My father nodded. "We sacrificed a lot." There it was. The accounting. Everything in my childhood had always been measured. Every birthday, every school event, every expense. Love had always come with receipts. Then my mother said the sentence that changed everything. "We only kept you because it benefited everyone at the time." She smiled again, as though she had delivered something reasonable, something practical. The air left my lungs. Not because I was surprised. Because hearing someone say it out loud was different. 25 years. Reduced to a transaction. My father finally opened the leather folder. He slid several documents across the table. "We've updated our estate plans," he said quietly. "You won't be included." The papers stopped in front of me. Legal language, disinheritance clauses, formal notices. Prepared carefully, planned long before tonight. My mother took a sip of wine. "We felt it was best to handle this in person." I looked down at the documents, then back at them, and suddenly something unexpected happened. I felt calm. Not angry, not devastated. Calm. Because 6 months earlier, my grandmother had already changed the ending. My grandmother Eleanor had been the only person in the Bennett family who ever loved me without conditions. When I was little, she baked my birthday cakes. When everyone else forgot, she remembered. When everyone else measured, she gave. She died when I was 23. And shortly after her death, I discovered something she had left behind. A trust. One my parents thought they understood. One they absolutely did not. I reached into my purse, pulled out a slim folder, and placed it beside my water glass. My father's eyes immediately found it. I watched the color drain from his face. He recognized the shape, the size, the possibility. My mother noticed his reaction. "What is that?" she asked. I smiled gently. Nothing important yet. The smile disappeared from her face. For the first time that evening, uncertainty entered the room. She didn't like uncertainty. Control was her oxygen. Then she pushed the papers closer. "You should sign the acknowledgement." I glanced at it. A waiver. Of course. Not simply notification. Protection. They wanted my signature before I had time to think. Before I could question anything. Before I could challenge anything. I left the pen untouched. Across the room, 3 tables away, someone shifted in their chair. I noticed because I'd been aware of them all evening. 3 people, quiet, watching, waiting. My mother never noticed. She was too focused on herself. "Claire," she said sharply. I folded my hands. "No." The word hung between us. My father's eyes closed briefly. My mother leaned forward. "What exactly do you think you're entitled to?" There it was, the real question. Not whether I was hurt. Not whether I was okay. Money, always money. I opened my folder, 3 documents, one after another. I laid them on the table. The trust agreement. A letter from the trustee. And my grandmother's notarized instructions. My mother's eyes immediately found Eleanor's name. Then she began reading. Slowly, carefully, and then faster. The color vanished from her face. My father didn't even bother pretending anymore. He already knew. The trust income they had received for years ended on my 25th birthday. Tonight, the remainder, everything left, passed directly to me, not through their estate, not through their will, not through anything they controlled. Directly, exactly as Eleanor intended. My mother read the paragraph 3 times, then looked up. "This can't be right." "It is." Her voice cracked. "No," I nodded. "The trustee confirmed it months ago." Silence. Heavy, absolute. Then something remarkable happened. My mother changed strategies. Instantly, the cruelty disappeared. Warmth replaced it, manufactured, desperate. "Claire," she said softly, reaching for my hand. "We're still your parents." I didn't take her hand. 20 minutes earlier, she had told me I was no longer useful. Now suddenly we were family again. Funny how quickly family returns when money leaves. My father stared at the trust papers. Defeated, small. And for the first time in years, I saw him clearly. A man who knew better and did nothing. A man who watched wrong happen because standing up was uncomfortable. Then I stood. The movement startled everyone. My mother frowned. "Where are you going?" I picked up my folder, looked at her, then smiled. "My family is sitting 3 tables behind you." Confusion flashed across her face, then she turned, slowly, very slowly, and finally saw them. The woman with my eyes, the man with my smile, the older woman who looked so much like me it felt impossible. My birth mother, my brother, my grandmother, they had been there the entire evening, watching, listening, witnessing every word, every confession, every cruel sentence. My mother's mouth opened, nothing came out. My birth mother stood first, then my brother, then my grandmother, not aggressively, not dramatically, simply standing, waiting, ready. The way people stand when someone they love is coming home. And suddenly, the room felt different. For 25 years, I had chased belonging, earned it, worked for it, performed for it, and there it was, waiting quietly 3 tables away, never asking me to prove anything, never asking me to earn a seat, just saving one. I walked past my parents, past the documents, past the years. My mother called my name. I didn't stop. For the first time in my life, I didn't stop. When I reached their table, my birth grandmother pulled out the empty chair beside her. The fourth chair, mine. She smiled through tears. We've been saving this seat for a long time. My throat tightened. I sat down, and something inside me finally settled. Behind me, I heard my mother begin arguing, heard her voice rising, heard excuses, explanations, justifications, but they sounded far away. Because for the first time, in 125 years, I wasn't sitting at a table where love had conditions. I was sitting at one where it didn't. And that was the moment my grandmother's final gift became clear. It wasn't the trust. It wasn't the money. It wasn't the house or the inheritance. It was the certainty that when the people who raised me decided I was no longer worth keeping, I would already know exactly where I belonged. My name is Hannah Cole, and I was 26 years old the night my family finally said the quiet part out loud. They told me I was never really one of them. Not in anger, not during a fight, not because emotions got out of control. They planned it. That was the part that stayed with me. Cruelty is one thing. Preparation is another. The dinner took place at a restaurant overlooking Lake Arlington. My mother chose it herself. White linens, soft lighting. Expensive enough to make people believe important conversations were happening. My birthday dinner. At least, that's what the invitation called it. I should have known better. For as long as I could remember, birthdays in our house were obligations, not celebrations. One candle, one card, one reminder not to expect too much. My cousin Emma got destination weekends and catered parties. I got practicality. My mother loved that word, practical. It was the word she used whenever she wanted less for me than she wanted for everyone else. By 26, I had stopped expecting anything different. Still, something felt strange the moment I arrived. My father barely spoke. My Aunt Lorraine sat at the table, even though she'd never been invited to my birthdays before. And there was a folder, a thick navy folder, sitting beside my mother's plate. I worked in financial compliance. I knew what folders meant. People didn't bring folders to birthday dinners. They brought them to meetings, negotiations, settlements. The food arrived. Nobody touched it. Finally, my mother folded her napkin and looked directly at me. "Hannah," she said. The tone alone told me everything. I felt my stomach tighten. "We've decided it's time to be honest." My aunt nodded. My father stared into his water glass. Then my mother smiled. Not warmly, professionally, like someone delivering prepared remarks. "You were adopted." The restaurant suddenly felt quieter, not because of the words, because of what followed. She waited, watching me, expecting shock, expecting tears, but there was nothing to reveal. I'd known for almost a year. She just didn't know that. When she realized I wasn't reacting, her smile weakened. "We never told you because we thought it was best." My aunt leaned forward. "The truth is important." I almost laughed. The truth had never been important to these people. Control was important. Appearance was important. The truth was only useful when it served them. Then my mother reached for the folder. "The reality is that you were never really family." There it was. The sentence. The one she'd rehearsed. The one she'd come to deliver. Across 26 years of birthdays and holidays and family photos. That was the conclusion. Never really family. My father still said nothing. I looked at him, hoping, waiting. But he remained exactly who he'd always been, a witness. Never a participant, never a protector. Just a man sitting beside cruelty and calling it peace. My mother continued. "We gave you a home. We raised you. We did our duty. Duty. Not love, not care, duty. The distinction mattered." Then she slid the folder toward me. Inside were documents, estate revisions, beneficiary changes, legal notices, every trace of me removed. My Aunt Lorraine actually smiled. "Blood should stay with blood," she said. I stared at the papers, and something unexpected happened. I felt relief. Not sadness, not anger, relief. Because hearing the truth is sometimes easier than spending your entire life pretending it isn't there. The silence stretched. Then my mother asked the question. "Aren't you going to say anything?" I looked past her. 3 tables away. toward table 12, the table I'd been aware of all evening, the table they'd never noticed. 3 people sat there quietly, watching, waiting, saving me a seat. My mother followed my eyes. "What are you looking at?" I smiled softly, and for the first time that evening I felt completely calm. Because 12 months earlier, my entire life had changed. It started with a letter. A simple letter from a woman named Rebecca Hayes, my birth mother. The state had finally released adoption records after years of waiting. I expected disappointment, awkwardness, distance. Instead, I found something terrifying. People who wanted me. Rebecca never asked for explanations, never asked where I'd been, never asked what I could give. She simply asked if I wanted to meet. Then there was Caleb, my younger brother, who started texting me terrible jokes 3 days after we met, and Margaret, my birth grandmother, a woman with silver hair and fierce eyes. The first thing she ever said to me was, "We've been waiting a long time. No guilt, no pressure, no conditions, just waiting." The concept felt foreign. My entire life, belonging had been transactional. You earned your place. You stayed useful, you stayed easy, but they never asked for any of that. They simply pulled out a chair and left it empty, just in case. For a year I visited them quietly, birthdays, Sunday dinners, movie nights, little ordinary moments, and slowly I realized something. Love isn't supposed to feel like a performance review. It's supposed to feel like coming home. Back at the restaurant, my mother was still talking, still explaining, still justifying. She didn't realize she'd already lost me. Not tonight, a year ago. The moment I learned what unconditional love felt like, my aunt tapped the papers. "You should sign these." I looked down, then closed the folder gently. "No." The smile disappeared from her face. "What do you mean, no?" "I mean, no." The room was sits. My mother straightened. "Hannah, don't be difficult." I almost laughed again. Difficult. The favorite word people use when obedience expires. Then I stood. My chair slid backward. The sound seemed louder than it was. My mother frowned. "Where are you going?" I picked up my purse and finally gave her the answer. "The people who saved me a seat are sitting 3 tables away." Confusion crossed her face. Then she turned around. Slowly, very slowly, and saw them, Rebecca, Caleb, Margaret. 3 people sitting quietly. 3 people who had listened to every word, every rejection, every confession, every calculated act of cruelty. My mother's face went pale. My aunt looked stunned. My father closed his eyes. And at table 12, something beautiful happened. Margaret stood first, then Rebecca, then Caleb, not dramatically, not angrily, simply standing, waiting for me, the way family waits. Rebecca smiled. The same smile I'd inherited without knowing. Caleb lifted a hand, a small wave. Margaret pulled out the empty chair beside her. The chair that they had specifically requested from the hostess. The 4th chair. Mine. My mother finally found her voice. "Hannah." I turned toward her. "For the last time that night." "What?" "Still your family." The sentence hung there. Fragile, desperate, too late. Because family isn't the people who keep score. Family isn't the people who remind you what you cost. Family isn't the people who erase your name and call it honesty. Family is the table where your chair remains empty because someone believes you'll come someday. Even if it takes years. Even if it takes decades. I looked at my mother, then at my father, then at the folder containing all the ways they'd tried to remove me. And suddenly none of it mattered. Not the documents, not the inheritance, not the rejection. Nothing. Because 3 tables away sat people who wanted absolutely nothing from me. And somehow that was worth more than everything sitting at this table combined. So I smiled. Not cruelly. Not triumphantly. Just peacefully. Then I said the only thing that needed saying. "You spent 26 years telling me I wasn't really family." I glanced toward table 12. They spent 1 year proving I was. And with that, I turned around, crossed the distance, 3 tables, a lifetime, and sat down in the seat they'd saved for me all along.